we now have the beautiful Elen Tompkins, a morning star message of hope from the Elven ones.
Thank you. Okay, well, it's not really that actually. It did change. It was the morning star is one of the teachings in this sequence of teachings from the Elven ones that I've been given. And when I tuned in a couple of days ago, it was really the swan feather cloak, the teaching of the swan feather cloak, which wanted to be shared today. So yes. So these teachings that I've been gifted over many years by the Elven ones, I'm more and more understanding that this is a gift of sacred guardianship, and the words amethyst star bundle came to mind, and many of you'll know the native traditions of the sacred bundle, and it's really how we carry and contain a very precious sacred essence, and it's the keeper's role to always unfold that bundle and share it in the correct ritual manner so that the true essence of those teachings are given. So I just wanted to start by, as it were, unfolding. I'm just going to do it on the invisible planes because I haven't got the crystals that I usually work with today. But if we just imagine this as a bundle of cloth, and we begin to unwrap it, and within there is a white fur which symbolizes the white bear cloak. And laid upon this bear fur is a sequence of 13 crystals, amethyst crystals. And I'm just going to call in those amethysts, that each of them holds the essence of one of these 13 elven teachings, and we'll begin to receive them on this level, which is really their purest form and their most significant form, as soon as they start coming in. And then I will share with you more about how they arrived and what they are. So if you just give me a moment, I will call that in around us. Where are our directions, Sean? North is this way, okay. So we've got east over here. East is this, that's north there, so it's east. So that's the mandala of the elven glyphs that I've called in around us. And this is it's a really exquisite mandala of wisdom teachings that are gifted by the elven ones of Lemuria. And I was gifted with these teachings during my years of shamanic training in the forests of Wales, listening to the trees, to the rocks, to the crystals, to the waters, to the flowers, and to the moonlight. And they were years of deep solitude and quiet and attention, for the most part, gradually becoming more sensitive to those realms and gradually becoming a clearer channel for those teachings. And there came a vision of a book lying in a forest clearing, and this book is clad in worn white deerskin, and within, on pages of bark, is inscribed a beautiful and glowing otherworldly language. It's written in gold and sapphire and silver inks. It's a language of the stars. It's the language of the elven ones, of the shining ones. And my heart understands this language. It understands this message immediately. And I know that it's my task to transcribe this book into the language of this world. And it takes me 9 years to fulfill this quest. 9 years to find the faith and the focus to be clear enough to bring this through. And the deerskin book tells us that aeons ago, the elven ones came from distant stars and galaxies, and they founded the beautiful civilization known as Lemuria. And theirs was a wisdom of the stars, but also of the earth. And they knew that in accordance with the galactic and intergalactic cycles of light, that their time on earth was coming to an end. And they knew that their time would be forgotten. It would come to seem like a myth or a dream at most. And they recorded their wisdom and their teachings in many forms, one of them being the deerskin book. For they knew that another cycle of light would come again upon the earth, when their wisdom would once again be accessed. And so they left this stored in another dimension until this time. And they tell us that this is the golden dawn of a new earth, a new cycle of creation upon earth. At the deepest levels of light, that this is what's occurring in the realms of nature. And there are many Lemurian souls, star souls, incarnating once more and sharing their wisdom. And our own other dimensional, our elemental and star nature is awakening from within. The other dimensional realms of nature are awakening with another cycle of light of creation. And they created the deerskin book. Its design surrounds us in their beautiful and otherworldly energies as our star nature awakens, and it guides us into our destiny as elders of this dawn. What they tell us is that we have been preparing for this for lifetimes. We are elders of this dawn. We are ready to make this transformation within ourselves. What I really wanted to share was this first passage from Silver Wheel, where I'm taken on a journey into the shining realms, and where I receive the connection to my own star lineage of the earth. This is the journey of the Swan feather cloak. I come to a shore of dark waters. Canoes drift to the shore silent. Laid out within a cocoon of swan feathers, one by one, are the elders, adorned with the pattern and ornament of their inheritance. Enfolded in the long pinions of their swan feather cloaks, they wear shining sapphire robes, each embroidered at the sleeves in a lost script. A lantern hangs at the prow of each boat, illuminating the archways of the forest. These are the elders who hold the crystalline knowledge of the Lemurian temples. Theirs are the old ways, theirs is the old faith of a cosmic creativity. This is the lost lineage of the Swan Elders. At the edge of the water there is one canoe that stands empty. I enter, laying down amongst swan feathers. My cloak is laid out. I come to this, a diaspora of bone, a mandala of flight from here to there. I settle into the cloak, cool as satin silk, sheer, pale as ghost, and frame of bone. I have been lost to this for so long, and I ache with the effort of remembrance. A part of me longs for oblivion and to remain unfulfilled. There is sweetness in falling back to earth, always unfinished, only half listening to the call that comes. And yet I know that I too have made the call, so that this is a prayer, one of my own. As the feathers grow through my bones, I feel a simultaneous ache and strength. It grows into my back, an inheritance of flight. I lie back in the canoe and close my eyes. The cloak encloses me in a sheath of feathers. The canoes move off from the shore. I feel suddenly the sway of movement, the sound of the water rushing back from the keel. As if in flight formation, the barges leave the riverbank. I close my eyes and I can hear the ripple and hiss of their movement through the waters, unsteered. The canoes travel the river through the mountain forests, curving through sheer canyons. Lamplit, they glide ever onward. I can feel the atmosphere alter. We are being drawn into the elven forest, the place where an ancient harmony has evolved, and structures of ancient time are still held. Every leaf is spun in uninterrupted communion with all other leaves. Light and space here are fully evolved to their true potential, nature attaining to its white mandala within this realm. This forest has long been tended by the Shining Ones. There are mosses and lichens tapering from the branches, holding their specific harmonies with the stars. Even with my eyes closed, I can feel the alignments of this sphere. A doorway has opened up that allows us into this uninterrupted place, this place where the choreography of elements is so precise, so evolved. The sapphire path of the river pulls us further and further into the elven forest. I can feel the shimmering wings of the forest calling through my swan cloak. 1,000 memories of spirit flight are stirred. Behind my eyelids, subtle radiances start to fall and rise, violet, gold, and emerald. This is one of the dwelling places of the elders who dream the earth. It is a meeting place of all the emerald and subtle realms, where dimensions dance in and out of one another. I can feel the ethereal bridges and archways that are woven into the natural forest. Here is the architecture of a radiant culture, an invisible and ancient aspiration. Finally, the hulls of the 7 canoes bump and rasp against the sand of a riverbank, and we come to a halt. There is the silence and a whistling song somewhere deep below ordinary sound. We have entered a different sphere, somewhere where the silence rules more deeply. I sit up slowly in my cloak, opening my eyes, and find leaves like 1,000 white swan feathers hanging all around us. I lift up my arms to touch the leaves. There is the stiff movement of feathers attached to my hands. Pushing against the sides of the canoe, I sit up, and brushing aside the veil of branches, I peer ahead. There is a clearing, and at its center is an immense tree. It towers upward, its trunk like a citadel spun of amethyst, a cosmic temple with its portals opening to every dimension. I can feel that the rest of the forest stretches out in a protective mandala around this tree, surrounding the lavender and otherworldly fire of its endless canopy. The Swan Elders stand up in their canoes. They stand there in their sapphire embroidered robes, and their cloaks have fallen away from them. Then, unexpected as the flash of a kingfisher, one by one they dive into the waters. As they touch the water, they metamorphose. They become swans. One by one, with the great fierce beating of their wings, they take flight, leaving their empty cloaks in the canoes. A figure emerges from the forest beyond the tree. Her skin and her dress glow moon pale. her dress transforming into a lamplight of gold leaves at the hem. She is tall and graceful. She is crossing the clearing towards me. At her feet there are dozens of small crystal bowls placed beneath the tree, filled with water offerings. Somehow I know that it is she who has placed them there, and that she is the guardian of the tree. She comes to the barges and leans across the bows, taking my hands in hers and pulling me out onto the shore. She takes me to the tree, and as I step under its canopy, I feel a wild shimmer run through my body. The dreaming tree's canopy hangs like an orb over the forest floor. It encompasses a wide clearing at the river's edge. Amidst the roots are the offering bowls carved out of different crystals, and amongst them small spheres of sapphire are burning on the ground. One by one, the guardian carries the cloaks to the shore and lays them out around the base of the tree. One by one, they begin to dissolve and they vanish, their flight paths drawn back, the dreams of the elders drawn back into the dreaming tree. But my cloak, its heavy wingspan, remains attached to me. I sit beneath the tree, the feathers stretching out beyond my fingertips, touching to the ground. It is stiff with the brittle rustle of the feathers against the earth. I wonder why my cloak has remained with me, why I have not flown with the other swans. I can feel the tree raining down its radiance all around me. The guardian, having completed her task, comes over and settles herself, cross-legged. There is a feather white in her hair. Her hair is moon pale, and there is a glimmer of turquoise at her brow. She is the rune and the glyph of a greater harmony, a purpose beyond herself. She speaks to me, and her voice is the sound of the leaves of the tree, a murmuring of autumn leaves to stars. You have need of your cloak, the cloak of the shaman, because you still have to cross over between worlds. The grandmothers will make for you this gift if you are prepared to take up the sacred task that is yours. You are to create a doorway between the human realm and the spirit realms, to create a doorway and to keep it open so that others may step through into the realm of vision. I ask her, my heart humming with her words, but why a swan feather cloak? The cloak is so that the people who need you can find you, as can the spirits. It is about clarity of intention and dedication. It is a sign that you have given yourself, and thus it provides protection and enables the path to unfold more smoothly. In this cloak, you are more easily found by those who need you, and yet less visible to those who do not. It is the swan who has remembered the old alliance. The myriad hollow bones of its feathers are crystal maps of the other world laid out. The swan has the power to bridge the realms, for which both strength and otherworldliness are required. You shall require this physical strength as well as fluidity and affinity with the light realms. The swan grandmothers then appear, and they begin to work this cloak with their fingers. There are tattooed markings on their faces, and there is something of the swan fall of a beak about the contours of their faces. Their eyes are dark and inscrutable, the skin of their hands lined and rough, yet with a transparency. Their glance is fell and swift, their dresses dusk grey. They kneel down in the moss, illumined by the canopy. They begin to work at the cloak, tugging and smoothing the feathers this way and that. The cloak begins to transform under their hands. It takes on tones of gold, violet, indigo, fawn, and crimson. The swan feathers are altering, the fabric becoming supple beneath their fingers. It is becoming a rainbow cloak. One of them looks at me with her sombre, slanting eyes and says, "This is the inner nature of the cloak." It appears as a swan feather cloak. This is its translation into this realm. You shall recognize it as this, as the swan feather cloak of the shaman. Yet within it is the elven mandala of the sun, woven of 7 sacred fires. It is this that enables you to step between realms, that enables you to remain true to yourself and become a living expression of wisdom. The daughters of the sun have woven this as a gift, but in truth it is your inheritance and a natural emergence. The grandmothers drape the cloak around my shoulders and wrap it around my body, crossing it over my chest. I am enveloped in the cloak. Its soft weight pulls me onto the sapphire paths of the future. I go forwards and I go back into gold realms of memory and presence. I find an earth that is hidden amongst the dreams that were lost. Into this earth I am transfigured, feather by feather, and this is the gift of the swan. And it's that phrase I find, an earth that is hidden amongst the dreams that were lost, that I feel is the heart of this elven gift, that is the heart of these teachings that they are offering. The glyphs are the starlight essences of the earth as she arrived from the stars, as she was first woven. And the Elven ones tell us that this immortal starlight soul of the earth, her original, her most ancient and timeless dream, is arising in a new cycle of creation, of light. It is arising into consciousness, into awareness, and our own immortal starlight souls are arising within us. And the Elven ones tell us that this is a transformation that is happening within one lifetime, which is an extraordinary message of hope, that this starlight original dream of Earth is arising back into dimensional presence around us in a very specific and beautiful choreography of emergence. And they teach us the grace to be part of this choreography of emergence, to trust its natural blossoming. We simultaneously are the ones who evoke and inspire this awakening, and we are awoken by it in turn. And have we still got... does anyone... Would it be okay to shift on to the next? So this is particularly what came through to be shared today, was this the first glyph of the teachings, which is... So the words that came with this glyph were, "There are those who will become keystones of the new earth. Their energy bodies will alter, they will shine. They will become the new earth. They will receive the initiations that they need for this reconfiguration. This choice is animated by exceptional love for the earth." And I think there are two aspects of this, which is, one, that our energy bodies are really altering, that we are coming into that shining nature as our immortal starlight essence awakens within us. This is a very, very physical awakening, that our bodies are actually altering. And secondly, that these initiations, this transformation is occurring in this beautifully natural choreography. And what we are really being asked is to participate in this. And this transformation, as it were, is the swan feather cloak of our own far star beauty, our own other dimensional, otherworldly grace. And each of us as interdimensional travelers in the immanence of the present moment, rewoven with the swan feathers of our interdimensional soul in this very moment. And this is the ancient myth of the mists, the story of the mists descending between the worlds. And this is the teaching of the West that arises from the Elven ones, which is that all this vanished beauty, this vanished loveliness that our souls know, that we intuit so deeply, is in fact returning at this time, that the mist, the veil between the worlds, is dissolving. So I just wanted to go back in my own story to the relationship between that way of being and certainly how I felt, and with the first clues of this arriving, which is that when I was 19 years old and I was preparing for a degree in classics at Oxford, and I was with my father in Greece and Italy, and we were travelling, visiting all the ancient sacred sites. And when we got to the Peloponnesian Mountains, I was reading a copy of James Lovelock's book Gaia, and I just read the opening prologue, And I fell to my knees in prayer, tears pouring down my face, and I had had no sacred experience of any kind throughout most of my growing up. But this absolutely struck my heart that being here was about being with the earth. It was just simply the simplicity of that. We're here to be with the earth. And I remember talking in the restaurant with my father about this. And I then went and started my degree in classics. And one day I was wandering through the Christchurch meadows with a group of friends, and I was wearing a bright yellow dress. And an old woman on a bench called out to me. She liked the colour of my dress, and she called to me. She was a little old woman sitting there with a green woolen hat on her head, and she had drawings and papers stretched out all over her knees. And she said, come over here, and she had an Eastern European accent. And so I sat down beside her, and she started showing me her drawings. And these were drawings, they were simple, they were in biro, beautiful, huge drawings in biro, but of the trees and of the birds. And she said to me, they're my friends. They talk to me. And I knew that she meant it. I could see in her eyes this simplicity. This woman lived in the heart of creation. And I'd never seen a living human being. I'd read about it perhaps, but to witness in the flesh a human being dwelling in this way, and in that moment it changed my entire sense of what was possible. And it was though the tower of dreams of the life I'd imagined for myself, of all those classics and academic life and all of this, it wasn't that there was anything inherently wrong with that. I just knew it wasn't real for me. It was a creation I created on my father's and my grandfather's dreams. Anyway, shortly after I left Oxford and I actually went to Wales, I moved to Wales, and the call of the land there was very, very strong. And my dream was to return to what I'd seen in her eyes. I wanted to return to that simplicity. And I was living in a beautiful cottage. I had a garden with an orchard and a stream, and it was idyllic. But it was a beauty that was outside of myself. And within my own mind and my own heart, I was agonized. I had no peace. I never stopped worrying. I was filled with voices, what I should be doing, what I should be feeling, what I should be thinking, all of these concepts endlessly dancing. My psyche was completely fragmented, and this beautiful, simple realm that I thought I could step into just by moving into the deeps of Wales was actually completely elusive. It was so beautiful, and yet it was so haunting. It lay outside of myself. And there then began many years of healing and shamanic initiation, and gradually peeling away the false layers, all these very, very brittle and shattered layers of the self. And it was many years of uncovering, and I can't remember the day that it came, but at some point I remembered who I was, and I remembered the child that I had been. I remembered right back to the beginning. I remember growing up in London, in Camberwell, so not a romantic place, but I remember looking out of my window at night at the stars and the lights of the city, and they were merged as of one. And I would remember being filled with a mystic rapture and singing to the stars, singing to the divine, with a sense of, it was a simultaneous sorrow and joy that was ancient. And I remember how old my heart felt. It was just immortally wise and old. And I'd completely lost any memory of that essence until those layers were peeled away. And suddenly, that child of the stars, that dreamer, was returned. And it was then that the shining realms opened up around me. It was then that I could feel the presence of the fairy folk, of the shining ones, as I walked the lanes, as I walked the moors. Suddenly I belonged to creation again. And it was through that dreamer, through that star heart essence, that connection was reawoken. So there was a beautiful gift. A friend took me to a place where it had been quarried in Wales, and there were clear quartz crystals just lying very, very close to the surface of the earth, and just with twigs just lightly dug up around them. And I took some of these clear quartz crystals home, and I just started listening to them. And I knew that whatever had to come forth from within me had to come not from the pages of any book, not from any concept. that my mind might already contain. It was just to listen to the vibrational echoes of what came through these crystals. And I would listen to this and just start recording. And simultaneously I was listening to the music of the Welsh language and just the vibrations of it and the old names of the Mabinogion and that music of the Arwen of the Welsh language. And I actually, despite having no musicality at all, I took the risk of hiring a harp just to see what would happen. And I started playing it intuitively. And this was the voice of the Shining Ones, this vibrational realm, this lost echo, this music within myself that was so haunting me. The harp, the crystals, the language, always drawing it into presence, as though from very, very far away. I then met with my teacher, Nancy Sherwood. She's a shaman from Canada, and it was she who taught me she took me on pilgrimages to the sacred places of Ireland and of Wales, and it was then that I discovered that in those places, if approached with a pure heart, a pure intention, that the record of the earth, the true story of creation, is held in those places and is gifted to us. We can receive the true story of creation directly from these places. And then the shamanic tools of the drum, of dance, of ceremony began to again just deepen this belonging to creation, going ever deeper within this vibrational sphere of listening to the Shining Ones. And the culmination of this was that the glyphs of the silver wheel were gifted from the waterfall of Pistilrada in Wales in 2012. And I saw them descending in a stream of light from the waterfall. It was a very intense experience, and they just flowed through from the waterfall, through my hand, onto the page. And I knew that they were at the essence of this lost wisdom, as it were, that had been trying to come through all this time, that finally I had got to that clear heart within myself that could touch their pure essence. And this experience of mine relates to the second teaching of the Deerskin book, where the Elven Ones really teach us, and I think so many of us are experiencing this, that we are called on these starlight paths within the earth. We can actually feel where we are called. It is like, the way I experience this is like almost like great starlit foot to travel, and this may not be easy on any other level of life. It may not make any sense whatsoever, but I know if I follow this shining narrative and this request from this level of consciousness, that I'm doing what I must be doing and that all will be well. And in 2013 I was asked to go to the Himalayas and I danced the glyphs in alignment with the phases of the moon in the Himalayas. And it was really there that I received the wisdom aspect of the teachings, not just their vibrational essence and the beauty aspect of actual crystalline wisdom. And this was really gifted in the Himalayas through the sequence of dances, which was also in the remaining Tibetan temples throughout the hills there. And that was a beautiful alignment, because it was really the Elven Ones, the Shining Ones. I mean, this is the connection at the heart of so many indigenous and shamanic and ancient wisdom ways, the awareness of the earth, of creation at this level. And when I was amongst those remnants of the Tibetan faith and the indigenous faith of those mountains, it was really feeling the interface of that connection, but also that vow, to that level of intention that they hold, which is to the highest good of all beings, the unfolding of all life on this planet. And I experienced that as a purification of my own heart in that place, because it was really asking myself, why am I bringing through this wisdom? Why do I want to create this? And it was really, yes, it was a beauty, and it was a beauty I could have lived in forever, just to be in those realms. But why? And it was really the purification of that desire to bring that light to others, not to bring it to others, but for just the presence of the glyphs of that elemental shining wisdom, that it ignites, it sparks with an immediacy the light and the soul lamp within those that it touches, and it's the light that's already within them, but it just sparks into presence. And this, I feel, is the gift of the glyphs, above all, the gift of their teachings. Then in 2015, so last year, I was called to dance the glyphs, one last dance of this silver wheel mandala around the North American continent. And I began in the west, and there were many beautiful mountains and volcanoes along that Pacific. And every time I danced the dances, there was a sense of the simultaneous, instantaneous, and entirely beyond myself awakening of this elemental, shining, dimensional presence of the earth, that these mountains, these volcanoes were awakening to this level. And as they were awakening through the presence of my sole intention of carrying the glyphs, they were also awakening me to new levels of awareness. And this is one of the teachings, that at this quantum starlight level of the earth, that this light that is the earth, that is ourselves, has to always be in motion, gifted and received. And it has to always be in this flow of reciprocity. This is the very nature of this level of creation. And so that has been my experience of it with the ceremonies. And there's a great immensity that is beyond the self that one witnesses taking place, but there's a sense with this immensity of entire humility, because you also are being awoken to ever deeper levels. Your soul taught how to be in presence, how to be in starlight presence on this earth, in this moment. So I danced this around the North American continent, and actually then in the East, I was asked unexpectedly, a lot of the ceremonies were actually in the cities. And this really began in New York, and then in Washington, D.C., which was a fascinating ceremony because we were parked in front of the White House and my husband was looking after the children and the flag was flying, so I believe he was in residence. And there were men everywhere with guns. I mean, it was just everyone, uniformed or not. Everyone was official and everyone had a gun, and the evening was coming on. It was growing dark and there were the trees in front of the White House. And I thought I would quietly stand under these trees and let the glyph come through that wants to come through here. This is, but it just became apparent it wasn't going to happen there under those trees. And I kept seeing the Washington Memorial. Does everyone know what that looks like? It's that great obelisk, great white obelisk at the heart of Washington, and imbued, I think, with many layers of spiritual and otherwise intention. And I had no desire or inclination to be involved on that level, but the Shining Ones were calling. They were saying, no, you take it to this. And I started walking. It was quite a long walk towards this. And I remember standing at the edge of this dark park. It was night by now, and I was just wondering, I've not been in cities very much, and I didn't feel safe. I was wondering, is it safe to cross in the darkness, to carry this glyph, to the memorial? And there was a policeman parked next to me, and there had been up until this point this very sense of the threat of all of these men with their guns everywhere. And then some part of my spirit just broke through, and I just realized I could ask him for help, that he could be an ally. I asked him, is it safe? Is it safe for me to walk across the park? And he said, yes, ma'am. It's 100% safe. So he was such assurance. He gave this message. So that was in Washington. So I did go over, and these glyphs just flowed through with such immediacy. I mean, it was just the willingness to be present for my feet to touch the ground in that place. And the elemental ones, the shining ones, just pouring through, their frequencies pouring through and interweaving with all the best of the spiritual intention that dwells in that heart of the American spiritual and political dream. And a real sense of, from the Shining Ones, no sense of judgment from them about what has been, about what we are, about our spiritual, political, or otherwise forms. Only a continuance of the thread of creation and how it interlinks with all that is best in us. And it was their energy is so different from what is already anchored there, and yet it was weaving in as a continuance and an evolution of all that is best, all that it exists already. So the final dance around North America was really this called to Bear Butte, which I don't know if any of you know. It's in South Dakota, and it's the holy mountain of the Lakota and the Sioux and many other Native American tribes. It's a little hill that just arises out of the flat land, and at its base are tied coloured prayer cloths everywhere. You can feel the presence of the vision quests at the ceremonies. It's absolutely palpable. And I stood there and I'd been guided. It was in the snow. This was Christmas that we arrived there. And there was a real sense of, I will absolutely only step onto this mountain, go any further if it's in alignment with the ceremonies and the spiritual intention of this people. I have no desire to presume. Although I know this hill belongs to the earth, such honour of what they are and what they hold. But no, there was a sense to go forward and to hold the final dance in this place. And when I completed that dance on that hill, and it was beautiful, and the message that came through, it was very, very simple, but when a message comes through at that moment of ceremony, at that moment of purified intention, it echoes in you. You remember it, you never forget it, no matter how simple it is. And it was just that it is time for the star teachings to be shared. They are rising out from the realms of nature, and it is time for them to be shared amongst all people. They're not just locked in the esoteric heart of our mystery schools and systems, as they have been for good reason for so long. They are being universally gifted and arising from the heart of nature. And this was the final message of that mandala. And then the call came at that time, what's the next step, where we were to go. And it was to come back to Avalon and to learn to embody that beautiful elven heart star essence, that golden essence of the elven realms. And Silver Wheel was then published in 7th of April this year, and we have moved back to Avalon, and it brings me to this threshold, to this moment as we sit here, because for years it has been about speaking with the land, with the forest, and now it's the courage to be present in the otherworldly grace of my heart, in presence with the otherworldly grace of your heart. And this is it. So, as one who has long been in solitude in the forest, this is an enormous level of growth for me also. And this is really this is actually the third teaching, the third glyph of the Elven ones. That this new earth arises in this, whatever we get from this moment of us gathering together, and it may just be it probably is just in a second or two, when our hearts interfuse and there is some direct understanding of that crystalline emergence that we all feel and we all attempt to put to words, or perhaps are wise enough not to. But, it's in those moments that this new earth is arising. It's in the metaphor that's given, it's in the overlapping petals of this rose, of this flower, that the new earth arises, in the interfused space of our souls and what is passing between us. I'll just check the time. Okay, well that's kind of perfect, because what I just wanted to do in the spirit of that was just to invite us. I just feel into that. But if you will feel with that, just to enter into that golden elven realm, those awakening energies of the golden dawn, and for us just to allow that to move through us, those original beautiful star codes of the earth, and allow us to be moved into our own next spiral of creation, that which our souls are moving into in the most radical and gentle manner. So we just I may just beat the drum gently, we will, and let that flow through.
Yantai Tantiaria Yantiantai Oriathiantai Kariantiantai Oriantiantai Kiantai breathe it through our hearts, that immortal starlight essence. Oriya Tiantai.
So many blessings and thanks for being present. Takienda. Ah, yes. It was for the most part in. I started dancing. Actually, the first dance was in Dharamsala. It's actually during the Dalai Lama's teachings, so that was really beautiful. And then went up into Ladakh, and then completed the dances. No, the final. Yes, I think the main sequence of dances drew into. And I was given the inspiration from them. It was when we were at the giant wish fulfilling stupa in Buddhanath in Kathmandu in Nepal, and walking round and round that with the old Tibetan women, and and praying, and yes, and then it came through that was to the. I'm not sure. We have our yes. I don't remember it, but yeah, it was beautiful. And it was really it was the cosmic aspect of the teachings there that was so strong up there in that high altitude and that purity of the atmosphere. And whereas before I'd always received the teachings from deep within the earth and the connection to the stars, but from deep within the earth. And then it was the more cosmic aspect that came through there. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, my teacher's name, my shamanic teacher, Dancing Light, and so really it was. She doesn't teach you in a technical sense how to do this, but it's just through the transmission, through witnessing her, and that was really so dancing the light, dancing the invisible. And I remember the first pilgrimage when I went with her to Ireland, and it was dancing in the churchyard in Kildare, where I think Bridget is very, very strong there. And I was on this pilgrimage, and it was with women who were all very deeply shamanically initiated, and for me it was the first experience. And we had this one orange marigold flower amongst us, and it's just one of those moments, like a click, it just clicked inside me, whereas before I'd been watching them from the outside wondering, how are they doing what they're doing, where are they getting it from, where's the rule book, and then suddenly something clicked inside me, and it was just that knowledge that it was just this divine play, just letting this divine play unfold, this movement of light from within. And I remember that moment, and with this orange marigold holding it, and suddenly it was so yes. I mean, for me it comes a lot through the hands, through yes, that's why I do it all the time. There are recurrent sequences, yes, that's interesting to say. Yes, I think there are, and it's almost one could almost make a study of that in its own right, the language of the sequences. Yes. Yes. It's quite precise, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and for me the movement is just absolutely inseparable. It's like the sound and the movement are they're like this first stepping through into this dimension of those invisible frequencies that are being gifted, and they come through first that way, and then through into other forms.
Are there more guardians?
Are there more guardians of the earth, of
or like yourself?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yes. Oh, no. I'm not special. Absolutely. No, I think of this particular sequence of glyphs, that's been my sole task, to bring these through. But it's absolutely, they're emphatic in the teachings that each of us, we are each a lost temple. Yes, we are each the guardians, and it's extraordinary that we are each keeper of this extraordinary lost dimensional presence. I say lost, but it's lost in the sense it hasn't been wedded to the frequencies of this world, of this apparent world that we've been living. And so, yes, we are all the guardians. Yes. Yeah. And I suppose my work has been to unfold the dimensional temple of my own soul, and this is part of its offering, my own star lineage and remembrance. Yeah. Yes, they are. The silver wheel is over there for sale. Yes, yes. Yeah.
What's your understanding of the environmental just fall away as this knowledge comes through?
Yes, no, it's such an interesting question. The level of consciousness of the Elven ones, it's so deep, it's so, it belongs to such vast cycles of cosmic time, and for them their awareness of the earth is at her level of immortal starlight essence, which is immortal and eternally flowering. And so all of those forms of the natural world, all of those beautiful musics and harmonic essences are eternal, and from the view of the shining ones, and so they don't have the same kind of emotionality that this particular level of consciousness does not have that same level of emotionality about the environment in the same way that we do. At the same time, their goal is absolutely the multidimensional emergence of all of those worlds flowering once more, but they see a lot of the changes that are going on, and the chaos and the destruction is actually all part, from their perspective, is actually part of the shift, and not so much a countercurrent to it, but one of the symptoms of what we're undergoing. That's my understanding. So, yeah. Yeah. And what's flowering through them and through that level of consciousness is so powerful. It feels undamageable, that essence. So powerful. So yes, yeah. Is there anyone else who wants to ask anything? To Ireland, yes. That was my my first connection, because really in Wales, but there's something in Ireland. It was like, without being to Ireland, I don't think I would have been fully activated to the awareness of them in Wales. It was almost, and it was when I went to the Hill of Tara, that was the first. But also, particularly actually visiting the grave of Yeats. And that was a very profound experience for me, because I actually found myself swept off into the other world, and I felt that I was dancing with him in the other world, an old-fashioned waltz, and it was very, very poignant. And there was that sense of that continuance of that destiny to share the shining realms, to share this realm, and to absolutely for that to be every single heart and soul aspect of one's purpose and what one's doing. There's no separate bit of doing something else. There's no alternative worldly bit up to something else. This is it. And that was the sense from him, and that's very profound. I found it very hard to come back from that contact with him. I was actually called back by someone who was there on the ground with me. For me, in a way, in Ireland, that was yes, and the dance at Kildare, but yes, a huge dimensional shift into this way of seeing there. I remember the sense, that was the sense of everything being turned upside down, of starting to see things in a completely from the level of light of the earth in Ireland. Yes, yeah. I'm getting tearful when you say that. Yes. Yeah. And interestingly, that they came through as the Elven ones, actually. I use many names to them, often they're Welsh names, and they're, as I was writing over the years, and it was only at the very end as they came through as the Elven ones, specifically Elven, and that must be also my own lineage coming through from some errant encounter between my great-grandmother and a Swedish general. Yeah.
So, did you turn your back on academia and Oxford completely, or do you still think that maybe you can contribute in some way to the world of academia?
Yes. Well, I did try to do this as a PhD. actually. I did. But in the end, the guidance was so strong, you just can't actually bring it through with that format. Although I was the gentlest of all tutors, and our academic world is astonishing. The thought forms it's birthing are amazing in some ways, but I couldn't hold integrity and hold the path I needed to bring it through from within that. It was a distortion, even within a gentle setting, gentle context of that. Yeah. And that's been the big one for me in this lifetime, the really big temptation. I would have loved to have been in the quiet sort of, academic, tower. Yeah, that would have been nice. My books are for sale at the back, and there's also, if anyone feels called, there's going to be a really beautiful evening star retreat into the realms of the Elven Ones at Pista Drogheda, a waterfall in Wales, in September, early September. So if anyone feels called by this to continue this journey, that's going to be really special. It's the first time the teachings will be held and the transmissions on the land. It will be a retreat, so it will be a deep immersion into these frequencies. And yeah, so yes. Anyway. Blessings and thanks.
Ellen. Thank you much for Elen Tompkins. Thank you.
Right, all right.
We'll have a short break, and our next presentation will be probably in about, quarter to, about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, like that, on water consciousness by Sandy Darling and Sunbird's Water Legacy.